we're a marine conservation society. And we're very well known for our actions, especially in the Antarctic, where we protect the whales of the Australian whaling sanctuary. For that actions and many other actions, we have been called pirates, we have been called outlaws, we have been called eco-terrorists and criminals. In fact, the truth is that we, the organization with the Jolly Roger's logo, the pirate flag waving proudly, we are actually fighting poaching, and that's the topic of today's talk. We're living on planet Earth, but actually we should call it planet Ocean. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. It is thereby the largest ecosystem on Earth, and this is so important for us all, even in a landlocked country like Austria. Just to make you aware how important the ocean is, I want you to do an experiment with me. I'm going to ask you now to concentrate on your breathing. Breathe in and out. In and out. And now, skip every second breath you would usually take. Inconvenient, right? But actually every second breath we take is produced in the oceans, which many people forget about. It produces more than all the rainforests on the Earth together. And responsible for that is phytoplankton. It's a little plant-based plankton, which is also the base of the aquatic food web. So, Elizabeth Colbert, for example, is writing about the sixth extinction. The sixth in a line of 5 massive die-outs we have been facing on planet Earth. She's writing that in 100 years, 20 to 50% of the species we know could be extinct. Species like bluefin tuna. Today, recently, the largest tuna that has been caught was about 2 meters and 30 centimeters. But 100 years ago, it was very, very common to catch tuna that was up to 5 meters long. And why is that? Exploitation of the oceans. For years, the delay of mass slaughter in the ocean was delayed. But now, with new technology, we also enabled mass slaughter of ocean animals. We have factory ships that are able to cut whales into pieces and freeze them within minutes. We have explosive tip harpoons. We have big trawlers that are fishing everything that comes in their way. So, even if the oceans seem very big, we humans manage to exploit them to the very end. So, let's talk about whaling. Whaling has been banned since 1986, sorry. There's the international ban of commercial whaling. It was passed worldwide. Only a few nations refused. It was Japan, it was Norway, it was Iceland. And Japan, for example, it took a very intelligent solution to continue their whaling activities. They declared it as research whaling. And the big advantage is you can set your quota by yourself if you're whaling for research, and you can go whaling in a whale sanctuary. And this is exactly what they did for years. They were going down to one of the most remote places on Earth, the Australian whale sanctuary in the Antarctic, and they were killing whales commercially. They were selling them. Even in schools. You're talking about dolphins there. But anyways, it was not well known in public. So when Sea Shepherd went there in 2002, we exposed these activities to the world. Most people, including me, thought that whaling is a thing of the past that has ended in the 70s, the 80s, or whatever. But actually, to find out that whaling still exists is, for me, a crime against nature, and then to find out that it's actually also a crime against the law makes this unacceptable. So if I walk on the streets of Vienna and I see a person who is kicking his dog, would I call the police, wait for an hour until they come and can't do anything anymore because the kid couldn't see what's happening? Would I start a petition? Would I start a Facebook group begging people to sign a petition that they will take away the dog? No, I would not. I would go over there and take away this dog from this person and make sure that this dog will not be harmed by this person anymore. So when an endangered minke whale is harpooned in the Antarctic, I want to make sure that this is not happening. And thereby, Sea Shepherd is going down there with their ships exactly where they are needed to prevent this from happening. And we're doing this with innovative strategies. All non-violent, which is very important. We're not there to harm any people. We're there to stop the whaling. So, for example, we were throwing stink bombs on a factory ship. Why? As soon as they pull a whale on a factory ship and they want to cut it to pieces to make it able to be sold on the market, and it smells really, really bad, a smell that can't go out of the meat, they can't sell it anymore. So they stop hunting whales. And also, we used other strategies like prop fowlers. It's a Kevlar-strengthened rope that we let into the water, which gets caught in the harpoon vessel's propeller. So they are being busy getting out the rope out of the propeller. And at that time, no whale is killed. So with these strategies, over the last 14 years, we were able to save 6,000 whales directly. We know this number because they set their quota. And at one point, because of our actions, they have to stop the campaign, the whaling season. They have to go home, and we know how many whales we actually saved. One of the most dangerous situations we've come in was when we had the idea. We found the Achilles heel of the Japanese whaling fleet, which is their refueling tanker. We know that to make the fleet able to stay out the whole whaling season, they have to refuel their ships. So a very simple strategy, we go down there, when the fueling tanker comes, we stand right between the tanker and the factory ship. Our vessel weighs about 500 tons, the refueling tanker is about 5,000, and the factory vessel is 8,000 tons. You can imagine how much force was on us. But if you're doing stuff like that, you have to make sure that you're standing your ground, and this is exactly what we did. We're talking to the captain of the refueling tanker and said, if you want to refuel the ship, you have to sink our ship. And at some point, they gave up. The season was over, and in this season, we saved 932 whales. These whaling activities, thank you. These whaling activities are illegal, and they're still happening. Even after, in 2014, the International Court of Justice in The Hague made a court ruling that the Japanese whaling is not research whaling, so it is not accepted by the international society. So what did Japan do? They ignored this and just started a new research program, so they can continue with what they're doing. And right now, Sea Shepherd can't do anything against it, because they are now using military technology. They're having military satellites. They can give in real time our position to the harpoon vessels and their factory vessel, so we have no chance of finding them. They can avoid us at any time. Additionally, they passed anti-terrorism laws that are specifically designed to be against Sea Shepherd. So they can also send military vessels to prevent us from protecting whales. You see, pirate whalers are innovative. So if you want to oppose them, you have to be innovative as well. And this is what we're doing. We're working on new strategies. We're not going down with the same strategy this year, but we as Sea Shepherd will never give up fighting for the whales. This is exactly what we have been doing for 40 years, and we will continue. Not only will we oppose the Japanese whaling, we will oppose the Norwegian whaling, we will oppose the Danish whaling. So, staying in the Antarctic, about 15 to 40% of the global fish catch is caught illegally. It's called IUU fishing, illegal, unregulated, and undocumented fishing. And also in places like the Antarctic, which is one of the last resorts of biodiversity, poaching is happening. For like 15 years ago, 1 out of 3 fish was caught illegally in the Antarctic, especially Patagonian and Antarctic toothfish, which can have really high prices on the black market. So, due to international efforts, the illegal fishing could be cut down and only 6 ships were left, the so-called Bandit 6. They were listed on the Interpol purple list, and they were also blacklisted. So our strategy was simple. We just said, okay, we want to stop this from happening. This species, the Antarctic and Patagonian toothfish, is vulnerable, so we knew we have to stop this now. So we went down in 2014 in the Antarctic summer and wanted just to track down this fleet. We wanted to put our cameras on it and bring this into the public to make pressure so countries will act and bring them to jail. How could a fleet like this avoid justice for such a long time? It was over a decade where they were catching toothfish illegally. So, for example, if an Australian customs plane would fly over this region, they would notice a ship that is doing poaching activities. As soon as this plane would be over the horizon, the ship would continue its activities with a new name under a new flag. So when the Australian customs will report a vessel that is registered in a country like North Korea, you can imagine that the complaint will not really go particularly far. So we knew we had to catch them red-handed. We need the evidence, and we need to make a video. We need to document that and write hand to the authorities that have the authority to bring them to jail. So when we first spotted one of those vessels, it was the Thunder, the longest sea chase that has ever existed is now in the world record book of 110 days started. As soon as they saw us, they tried to escape through ice, through stormy weather, but we followed. The captain, Peter Hammerstead, at that time, asked his crew, "Are you willing to stay out at sea for 2 years?" that yes, they stayed. Others who did not, they had the opportunity to go to another ship, which was left back to get the illegal equipment, the illegal fishing gears that the ship left back. It was 75 kilometers of illegal nets that we were pulling out of the oceans. After 110 days, this chase ended because the captain of the Thunder decided to sink his own ship to destroy evidence. Since we had the evidence on the other ship, they still got to jail, and it was a big sign for the other Bandit 6. We were managing to make another ship flee from the Antarctic waters that we caught 1 year later, and we prevented it for this whole year from coming back to the Antarctic waters. And 2 other ships were caught by other authorities in national waters because we gave the tip that they would come into the waters. And after 14 months, all of the bandits were caught. So this was not only 6 ships that were catching fish illegally, that were shut down. These were 6 ships that were doing this for 10 years, and they're not able to continue this. And also it's a sign for all the other poachers that are not coming back now because they know these waters are patrolled. So in terms of saving lives, fighting illegal fishing is very, very important. You can save so many lives that is nearly impossible to save in any other way. I will show you now a video of our crew pulling out the nets.
In the course of the Operation Icefish campaigns, the Sam Simon was able to confiscate 72 kilometers of illegal gill net, abandoned by the most notorious poaching vessel in the world, the Thunder. The Bob Barker broke the record for the longest pursuit of a vessel at sea, chasing the Thunder for 110 days until that vessel finally sank off the island of Sao Tome and Principe. And the Steve Irwin, the flagship of the Sea Shepherd fleet, was able to track down the Viking to Indonesia, where it was finally arrested by the Indonesian authorities. Out of the Bandit 6, 1 sits at the bottom of the ocean off of Sao Tome and Principe. Another of the Bandit 6 has been sunk by the Indonesian Navy, and the other 4 vessels are being detained in Cabo Verde, Senegal, and Malaysia. That means that the 6 vessels that Sea Shepherd sought to shut down with Operation Icefish, all 6 of those vessels have been brought to justice, and Sea Shepherd has shut down illegal fishing in Antarctica.
And the end of this campaign, which was in the West African waters, was the beginning of a new type of campaign. The Gabonese government, a really poor country with not much resources, asked us for help. They want to patrol their own waters. They knew that a lot of IUU fishing is happening in those waters. The rate is suspected to be about 40% of IUU fishing. In the national waters, the countries have jurisdiction. They have the authorities to bring the people directly to jail. So with Sea Shepherd assistance, they could now patrol their own waters effectively. We did over 40 patrols in these waters in one campaign, which ended in 4 arrests, and also in a following up campaign in Liberia, where we also were doing patrols. And for example, we arrested a ship that was Dutch-owned, registered in Nigeria, was allowed to fish shrimp. It was certified sustainable. It was allowed to export the shrimp to the United States, and actually it was shipping it to Greece and to the European Union. They were certified sustainable because they had what is called a turtle excluder device, which is a little gate in the nets where the turtles can escape, but they were not using it. So as you can see, it is really easy to declare fish that was caught illegally as legal fish, because it's not clear where did it come from, where was it caught.
In 5 months of patrolling, Gabonese authorities have boarded over 50 legally licensed fishing vessels, inspecting their catch and their operations for the first time in history. And what the Gabonese authorities have found is that what these fishing vessels are reporting and what they are actually doing on their waters does not match up. Gabonese authorities documented one purseiner killing 114 sharks in a single haul of tuna, sharks killed as bycatch. When that same vessel was later inspected, they declared 5 sharks discarded as bycatch. What Operation Albacore allows the Gabonese government to do is to have eyes on the water, to make these fishing operators accountable for the first time ever. Operation Albacore has allowed Gabon to revolutionize the way it manages its fisheries. It can determine which fishing vessels are complying with the law. It can determine which areas need to be shut off or closed off for fishing, and the Gabonese authorities can determine where to establish marine parks.
So, not only did we save thousands and thousands of animals there, we also do a really, really important job in order to conserve this ecosystem, to make the fish, this fish stock, enable it to be healthy again. And as well, the problem with poaching from different nations is, for example, rich European countries, they go to Africa because of the higher biodiversity and they catch fish there. And in the end, they're taking away the fish from people like the citizens of Liberia that really need those fish to survive. But poaching is not only a thing that is happening offshore, it's also onshore. As sea shepherd, we're also taking care about all the animals that have to go to land, for example, seals or turtles. I myself have been in one of those campaigns recently in summer. It was on a small island called Mayotte, which is a department of France. It is to the west of Madagascar, and it's actually more like Africa than France. So there are several reasons why people are poaching turtles. One of the reasons are the eggs, the other reason is meat, and the other reason is the shell. Those are only the threats from poaching. And then there's numerous other threats like pollution, like light. For example, in very industrialized cities, for example, in Florida and St. Lauderdale, we also have a campaign there. The turtles get distracted when they're hatching and they see the light and they're always going in the direction of the light, which is exactly the opposite direction of the ocean. So the problem with turtles is they lay a lot of eggs. It can be 50 to 200 eggs that they are laying, but only about 1% survive in the ocean. And in the end, out of those that made it, another 1% will make it to sexual maturity. Because the other threats in the ocean are, for example, sharks, as long as they're small enough to be eaten, or they land as bycatch in the nets. They mistake plastics for food, so they're dying of that, and other threats. In Mayotte, the reason for poaching is the meat. The people are very poor. They're mostly illegal immigrants. Of 500,000 people, 300,000 people are illegal immigrants from the Comores, so they're trying to flee. And even if I just said that the living standards in Mayotte is not high, it's even worse on the Comores. So there's 2 types of poachers, and the first one is very poor people that are killing turtles to survive from their meat. And the other type is organized poachers, a network. They're selling the meat on the black market. For 1 kilogram of turtle meat, you get 40 euros, which equals, in a turtle that is about 100 kilograms, and 40 kilograms of meat, they can make up to 1,600 euros per turtle. Of course, not the poachers are getting that money directly, but it's the mafia that is selling that all over the world. So, how can you fight those poaching activities? Turtles are very vulnerable. They have to come to the land to lay their eggs. In the water, they're really quick, but on land, they're really, really slow. Trust me, I've seen them. So while they're on land, it can take up to 5 hours for laying their eggs. And in this time, they're easy prey. So the strategies are either you're just patrolling all night, you're sitting there, you're waiting until the turtle goes back into the water. The problem there is that poachers are aggressive. Sea shepherd is talking the only language poachers understand, and that language is profit and loss. So if we are patrolling there, they're losing a lot of money. And that's the reason why they are aggressive against us. They have been attacking us on my yacht, they have been throwing stones at us, they burned a car of ours. So it was to expect that there would be more aggression, but luckily there was not. Even though we were patrolling every night, the poachers found ways to poach turtles. One time I came to the beach with my team and we saw a turtle that was freshly killed right before we came there. Apparently they have been out at the beaches the whole night. They have been hiding in the bushes. During we were there, we didn't even see them. So there's other strategies in other countries where they're going for the eggs. So in the time where the turtle is laying eggs, it is a kind of trance. So what our volunteers do there, we measure the turtles, we take scientific data, which is very important in order to predict the status of this species. Actually, out of 7 sea turtle species, all of them are either vulnerable or endangered. When the eggs are laid and the turtle is back into the water, it is a strategy to relocate those eggs to so-called hatching places, which are either police guarded or guarded by Sea Shepherd volunteers. So after 50 or 60 days, those hatchlings come out of the water and can go to the beaches safely. Of course, a real problem is also that if you kill a turtle that is coming out of the water to lay eggs, and you don't wait until the turtle laid its eggs, you're killing not only the turtle, you're killing the possibility of the hatchlings to survive, and this is like the snowball effect. So education is really important. If the poachers wait at least until the eggs are laid, then there is a chance for survival.
With 625 inhabitants per square kilometer, Mayotte has a population density more than 5 times greater than that of metropolitan France. This generates an explosive local situation. Added to this societal distress is an ecological catastrophe. Mayotte is strewn with waste. Wild dumps are forming, polluting the lands and threatening biodiversity. The entire ecosystem is also endangered by various illegal activities. Among the victims are turtles, a protected species that find themselves poached for their meat, whether it's occasional subsistence poaching or more often by organized poaching networks. The turtles, taking advantage of the rising tides to come to lay on the beaches, are indeed easy prey. They have become victims of a very lucrative black market.
So the turtles are worldwide protected under the CITES agreement, which is the agreement of the trade with endangered species. For example, the turtles that are, the hawksbill turtles that are hunted for the shell, the trading of this shell, which is strictly forbidden. And of course, a real problem is of any species in the ocean, they're not staying on places, they're migrating. So it's really hard to protect them effectively worldwide. The international ban on whaling is an international law, so those animals are protected worldwide. But for example, there's nothing like that for sharks. Sharks are protected in specific areas, but not globally. Recently, it was yesterday, a new law came out, or it was passed. It's a convention of the conservation of migratory species, which is a really, really good step in the right direction. For example, whale sharks that are migrating a lot are now protected in their biodiversity hotspots. But as with any law, it needs enforcement. If this is only on paper and there is no enforcement, illegal activities will happen and those animals will be slaughtered. Talking about sharks, a huge problem is shark finning, especially in Southeast Asia. The shark fin soup is a delicate thing that you have, for example, offer at weddings. And also they're using it for several other medicine and more or less, for example, for libido. So actually it is forbidden to transport fins only, so the fins have to be connected to the body. This is an EU regulation. But still, not all shark species are protected. For example, we had a recent campaign in Timor-Leste, which is in Southeast Asia. We found a ship, a Chinese ship, that was fishing in Timor-Leste in February this year. It was a mothership with several other ships that were filling sharks into the mothership. So this footage was taken, and actually in these waters, the killing of sharks is illegal. But because of corrupt officials, or whatever reasons, nothing happened. So Sea Shepherd decided, we have to go back there, we have to track this fleet, and we have to bring them to justice. So that's what we did. We found the fleet of 15 vessels, we had authority from Timor-Leste on board, and we did controls. And what we find was horrific. We found the cooling rooms full of dead sharks. Mostly it was only fins, sometimes it was connected, the fins were connected to the bodies. So, still, this fleet is active. We were bringing them to a harbor where they were caught for further inspection, but still some officials were corrupt, and they were not judged for the illegal shark finning activities. But what happened now is that the authorities found out that the vessels were registered in different countries, so they were sailing on multiple flags, which means they're pirate vessels. So this is why this company, which is running this fleet, was taking away the license.
In February, this fleet was filmed carrying out a transshipment right here in Vamase. The footage shows masses of sharks, including CITES-listed hammerheads, being transferred to a mothership, the Vielen 999. In August, the Vielen 999 was apprehended and detained in the Galapagos, and now its crew are serving jail time. Last week, in partnership with the Timorese police, Sea Shepherd crew boarded these vessels during a dawn raid to document what was on board.
Everything went really well. We deboarded the vessels we wanted with a lot of success, and we managed with the ocean water to stop the others to flee and to escape justice.
What we also found during this campaign was other vessels that were fishing with drift nets, the length of 2 times 10 kilometers for 3 vessels, which is illegal because the drift nets may only be 2.5 kilometers. So we reported them to the Chinese authorities, and we're really hopeful that the Chinese, who take poaching really seriously, will act on that. As you have heard in the video, the mothership was recently caught in the Galapagos National Park for killing 300 tons of shark. The Galapagos National Park is an area where Sea Shepherd is active as well, since 2003. It is a partnership with the authorities there, with the government, the Ministry of Fisheries, to protect their waters. The Galapagos Islands are rich in biodiversity. They're one of the last biodiversity hotspots we have in the oceans. What Sea Shepherd did is we invested over 1 million euros for equipment, for a patrol vessel, for education, for a system where fishing vessels have to be registered if they're fishing, and also, which was very new to the world of controls, is a canine special unit, which are dogs that are trained to find shark fins on board of ships that are going to the harbor. So this is how a successful partnership can work. As you saw, the ship that was fishing illegally there was immediately caught and brought to justice.
Protect a place that is so beautiful, so unique, which has such an incredible history when it comes to, the study of evolution. If we can't protect that place, how can we protect anywhere else? This is, in a way, is a very sacred place. It's very hard to have respect for any other ecosystem if we can't respect the one ecosystem which is most renowned on this planet for being so unique.
So the future of our oceans has to be that we're focusing on the last resorts, of the last hotspots of biodiversity, and effectively protect them like we do on the Galapagos Islands. The special thing about Sea Shepherd is, I see this with many other organizations, a lot of people just like to buy a good conscience. If they're donating, somebody else will do it for you. This is not the model the Sea Shepherd does. We're all volunteers. There's only a few people that have a paid job by Sea Shepherd. So it's possible to join us in our mission to protect the oceans. We have a fleet of 10 ships that are constantly out on the oceans to protect endangered species, to protect our precious animals that we have in the oceans. Even if I didn't show European campaigns, we also have European campaigns. We don't have to look that far. There's whale slaughtering happening in Denmark. We had a campaign in the Baltic Sea this year where harbor porpoise are about to extinct soon if we don't act now. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's lots of hotspots where we have to get active in order to protect the oceans. And not governments were forcing major changes in the system, major changes in history. It was always a small group of people or individuals that forced a major change. So this is the philosophy of Sea Shepherd. We're a really small organization, but we're having a really big impact. And with all the donors that we have, we're able to protect the only thing that is really worth fighting for, which is life. Thank you.